Welcome back to Your Friend in Food, the podcast about the people behind the systems and the choices that shape how we feed ourselves and the people we love. I'm Sandy, and today's episode is our season finale. To close out the season, I'm sitting down with Kay Lim, co founder of Heartful Sprout. Heartful Sprout began the way many food journeys do, with a parent standing in a grocery store aisle, overwhelmed by advice, warnings, and pressure, just trying to do the right thing. In this conversation, Kay and I talk about what it's really like to build a food and tech product from that place, including how engineering thinking found its way into baby food planning, what Kay didn't expect about feeding kids in those early years, and why supporting parental intuition matters just as much as nutrition data. We also get into the quieter realities of building a mission-driven company, the trade-offs, the moments of doubts, and the responsibility that comes with creating tools parents trust during such a vulnerable stage of life. This isn't just a conversation about perfect feeding or parenting. It's about designing better defaults, sharing what actually works, and bringing a little more calm to what can feel like total chaos. It felt like the right way to close out this season of Your Friend in Food. So let's get into it. Today's guest is someone I'm really excited about, Kay Lim, an engineer, a founder, and someone who, like so many of us, didn't grow up cooking, but found her way into the kitchen through love, family, and one truly moving love of pasta. And from growing up in Korea to building Heartful Sprout, Kay's food story is layered with memory and motherhood and more than a few surprising moments. So I want to welcome Kay to Your Friend in Food. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this conversation.
From the moment I met you earlier this year, I was so really moved by your story and why you decided to start Heartful Sprout. And many of the things that we do in our lives is really motivated by things that impact us in our life. And the foundational things are food. So I never forgot about Heartful Sprout and your journey and have been following along with everything you've been doing and sharing. But I'm really excited to get background information about who you are and how food has really been the theme of your own personal journey. So let's get into all the questions. So you grew up in Korea, then came to the US in high school. So what role did food play in just helping you stay connected to home since you were so far away?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I grew up in Korea, came to US during high school, all by myself without any families. And I didn't realize back then, but now I know that food was very tightly tied to my identity. So when I came over here by myself and I flew back for every summer vacation. And whenever I go back, I was always looking forward to eating the foods that my mom made. And the food naturally shaped my identity, even after such a long time staying in the US. I always crave for Korean food. Whenever I identify myself, I say I came from Korea. And then the conversation naturally flew to Korean food and Korean culture. So food has been very central in everything just about myself and going back to where I came from.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the first time we spoke and you told me you were from Korea, I just remember the first time I went to Jeju in Korea. And the only thing I remember about Jeju, besides being a beautiful island, was the food. I could see how that was a natural transition whenever you told people about Korea. So, especially being so young and really needing that foundational connection and a way to embrace where you were, this new place and its own culture, but also, like you said, a sense of identity and who you were. And sometimes being away from home, you don't realize how important that is until you actually leave. So that's amazing. And you actually shared that your mom always asked what you wanted to eat when you visited. I can totally relate to that. What was always on your list?
I always crave for Korean food because it's hard to get those Korean food in the US, especially back then. I always ask for 갈비찜. I don't know if enough about Korean food.
Yeah.
갈비찜, pork-based 갈비찜 can be any meat, but I loved the pork one. I ask about the 잔치국, which means festival noodle. Korean people used to make that for any kinds of festival, like like traditionally. My mom made it so simple, so, like, she cooked it so many times for me. So always ask that is, like, my kind of chicken noodle soup type of food, like, very home food, and I always ask for kimchi soup that has pork belly in it. I guess I
Love
really
kimchi.
like pork. But those are some of the food that I really missed when I was here, and I especially missed the specific recipe my mom had. It just reminds me of home.
When I used to live in Shanghai and I had a lot of Korean friends, and there were two friends that I had that were living in Shanghai as well. And whenever they would go home, their mom would make them huge tub of gochujang, and they would literally take it to whenever we would go to people's places to visit, they had this little jar. They would just put the gochujang in
Oh.
whatever they were eating. And it was like the special recipe. I feel like moms always have a special recipe. And they actually taught my husband and I how to make kimchi. And they also told me that everyone's mom has their own special recipe of kimchi as well.
Speaking of, my mom also has her own special gochujang recipe too. So I always ask her to bring gochujang whenever she comes visit me.
Yeah, it's so amazing living abroad and meeting so many different people. You realize your stories are very similar because whenever I would come home the week before, my mom would always ask me, "What do you want to eat?" And I always had my own list. It's just interesting how all these things all relate together. We all have a really shared experience when it comes to food and comfort and memory.
Yeah.
So, did you ever realize that in those moments, just how deeply food tied into your identity as a Korean? You mentioned that a little bit of that before, but how much of an impact did that really have on you?
Yeah. So at those moments themselves, I didn't really realize that I just craved for Korean food when I couldn't have that. I thought that was all there is.
Right.
But now that I grew up, started like having a job, started to have to figure out things on my own, cook for myself, then I realized that it's like literally a part of myself. The more I craved for Korean foods back then, the more I tend to cook those foods like nowadays. So you mentioned kimchi, kimchi jjigae. Those are still my top two like recipes that I made. It's just naturally a part of my lifestyles now.
Yeah, that's so interesting that happens. I remember growing up too, and my family's from Haiti, and growing up in Miami, I never actually appreciated the food that my mom cooked at home. So I would always like sneak and go to McDonald's and try to bring it in. And my mom would be so upset. She'd say, "Why are you eating this junk when you have good food at home?" And I never really understood that growing up until I moved away. And I now that's all I want to make. I recently asked her how to make a certain recipe that I was craving, but she wasn't around. And I really now also appreciate how much it really has shaped your identity, your way of thinking, the things that make you feel comforted and close to who you are and your family. Totally can appreciate that. How did it feel when you had to start cooking for yourself? Mom has always doing it for you, but now you have to do it for yourself. What did that feel like? Was there a turning point in your life where that had to happen?
Yeah. During college, that I didn't really think about cooking. I just ate whatever my dorm had. I ate whatever the student center had, like a lot of fast food chains. And at some point, I don't know what's the exact trigger, but at some point, I was so tired of the flavors of those like store foods, like highly processed food or whatever dorm is cooking. It was good food. But still, I was so tired of those. I didn't cook growing up. Asian parents probably typically, and I was privileged enough to just focus on study. So I didn't even know what to cook there, but I didn't want to eat the store food. So I was like, oh yeah, I will try it. It shouldn't be that much. It's just heat it up. So I started with like some packaged food where I can just cook it, like milk it. And then it started from there. It was simple as just like cooking instant noodle. It was like that simple. And I was getting tired of those food as well. And then I started exploring like what else can I cook? And I have no idea what is are there as options. So I bought a recipe book and I took on a challenge that I will cook every single recipe on this book just for me to practice. And I will just feed myself as a part of that journey. And that's how I started like practicing my cooking skills. And I still have a few recipe books that is like going page by page, but it helped me expand my cooking like cuisines and cooking styles. And it gave me like got me to more creative in terms of what I can cook or even like how much creativity I can put into a dish. So I think that recipe book challenge was my turning point for me.
That's amazing, Kay. What are some of your favorite books that you like to cook from?
There was a book that claims that it's the recipe that you can cook within 20 minutes.
I love
So
those.
yeah, it's so easy. It for me as a beginner, it took more than 20 minutes, but still
Yes,
it's better than any other recipe books.
for
So that
sure.
was it. And then recently I got into a recipe that's like somewhat keto, but more of quick, easy, and nutritious, less calorie. I was trying to lose some belly fat from my pregnancy, and that recipe book was pretty good too. So there are different cuisines that I'm exploring through just forcing myself to do every single recipe on the recipe book.
Especially for someone who is working on a recipe platform, it's also so important to be so self-aware about what that guiding journey is like, following a recipe and what moves you to want to cook a certain recipe. How do you get from beginner to feeling more comfortable about cooking more, especially for your health and the health of your family? So I wouldn't be surprised if even your own personal journey has really lent itself to your actual profession
Mm.
and inspired maybe a lot of things in Heartful Sprout as well. I found that to be the case too when I think about what guided cooking really means, either from a recipe platform or from a cookbook. It's a process not everybody can do well, like that guided cooking or guiding someone into the cooking journey, especially when they're cooking something brand new.
Yeah. And that's actually a good point. Another turning point for me was when I became a mom, actually, which was the trigger for starting Heartful Sprout as well. Because as someone who is trying to pick up cooking skills, I thought I got to a point where I could cook for myself. Okay, now I have to cook for a whole different types of food, which is baby food. I didn't even know that they had to learn to swallow. They naturally
Oh,
just
wow.
spit everything out while they put everything in, like to their mouths. It's a different challenge. I had to cook for different ways to make spicy Korean foods to non-spicy Korean food. That's
Mhm.
also new because I tend to eat a lot of spicy foods. I love soup-based dishes, but it's hard for the kids or for the baby to eat like soup, especially when it's hot and warm. So I had to learn whole different sets of cooking skills to accommodate baby food. I feel like I was going back to the like beginner level cooking. But at the same time, I also had to think about all the different nutrition that they should be getting. I cannot just cook up some quick sandwich for them because sometimes it may not be the good nutrition for them the way I make sandwich. So that has been also my turning point of paying extra attention to nutrition and expanding my food horizon.
I want to talk more about that, explore more about that, because I think this is the moment where we met and I learned more about what you were doing with Heartful Sprout. But I do want to get into kind of the phase of your life between your adolescence and growing up and launching Heartful Sprout and just some unexpected moments maybe that you had in your life. So you describe yourself as a type A engineer and self-proclaimed not great cook. Even though I'm in food tech as well, I can totally relate to that. What's been the most surprising lesson you've learned through cooking?
I think the biggest lesson that I got from cooking is that cooking is not necessarily for food. That was totally mind blowing for me. It also goes back to my childhood where my mom used to do a lot of different things in the kitchen. And I didn't realize that was like a funny thing until I became a mom or I had to cook for myself. For example, Koreans do a lot of facial mask.
Yeah.
We do a lot of skincare. And a lot of people do it with food. Like cucumber is like a perfect example. We just like slice up the cucumber, put it on our face, and just lay down and just do some chit chat together for 20 minutes. And that's like our skincare if there's any special events tomorrow going on. Or my mom has a hobby of paper crafts. She used to make like a sticky liquid or glue, whatever like we want to call it, using rice flour or even regular flour works too. And then it holds the papers so tight and so strong. And I was just like watching her in awe. What is she creating? Like, why is she using like food ingredients to make paper thing? And like those kind of things, or it didn't hit me until lately because I was coming up with fun activities for my daughters. Like when she was a toddler, what kind of art can we do? What kind of things can I do so that like she can bring her into her mouth and still not toxic or chemical? Turns out all the ingredients, all the stuff that I need is in the kitchen. But using flowers, I could make like Play-Doh for her. I did some like ice and food coloring things so that she can paint on the ice. So all those like fun stuff can happen in the kitchen. And we can say that those are not cooking, but sometimes it can feel like cooking, but it's not for food. It's not for us to consume. It's just for fun. So that was my surprising lesson that, yeah, cooking is not just for eating.
That is the most innovative thing I've heard in a long time. And it's so true. And the great thing about what you said about doing this with your daughter, it's non toxic. I know a lot of people, parents are concerned about these types of products and the long term effects that they could have on their child's health. But that's true. There's a lot of things that you can do with food that has nothing to do with eating it. Every time I talk to you, it's just so like I have like mind blown emoji. That's really cool. And I hate to keep talking about kimchi because I love kimchi so much. So much. It's a thing between my husband and I. The stinkier, the better. Dare I say it? It's
Yeah.
so now you now make your own kimchi. So how did that become like a never going back kind of moment for you when you finally made your own kimchi?
Yes. Yes. So I never thought I would make my own kimchi because always thought it involves so many hours, so much effort. And my mom came over, visited us when we had a second baby. And she taught us she basically showed us how to make a kimchi. And she made it so easy. It's like, it was my eye-opening moments, like, how do you make kimchi so easy? And then she taught me how to make one. She basically tried different things because ingredients don't taste the same, and she wrote down a recipe based on what she usually do versus like how she would do here with the ingredients that she can find here. And it was so good. As in, like, the flavor was very personalized and customized. It was, like, very to the point where I just, like, those, like, Italian, like, hand gesture, it was like this.
A chef kiss.
Yeah, for kids, and I'm never going back to the store bought kimchi since then. I also don't know what's actually in that kimchi, and now I can control everything that goes into the kimchi. So I can make it tastier, I can make it healthier, I can change up some ingredients, I can control whatever goes there. So there's no reason for me to go back to store-bought kimchi. I can make it in a couple hours and it's there. It's also part of my lifestyle.
I'm feeling inspired to try to make my own kimchi as well. My husband and I just made natto. It's like a Japanese
Oh, you can
fermented.
make it?
Actually, someone gave me a very easy recipe using the Instant Pot, and it was so easy. Let me know if you want it. I can send it to you.
Yes.
But I think it's the same thing. Once you think in your mind, wow, this is going to be so hard. And then someone shows you, and I love what you said that your mom came and showed you how to make it with ingredients you can get there. And that's the overwhelming part that there's ingredients or products that are just not quite the same in America. And you think, it's impossible. I cannot do it.
Mm.
And then she show you like, yeah, you can. And here's how, and it's easy. And then you never go back. Like you're never going back to the store-bought stuff again. One of my favorite details that you shared with me also was that your husband made simple pasta with jarred sauce and you were so touched. Why did that moment stay with you?
So the situation was like this. I was traveling for work. I came back home. We were just dating, and he came over to my apartment. He cooked the steak and pasta. It was literally like cooked pasta and pre-made sauce combined together. There's no other ingredients. But I think just the fact that he took time and put efforts into making a dish, making a dinner for me was just so special. It's just represented his love for me.
Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing? I think it's almost when you were little and you made a card for your mom or your dad, and the card is like nothing. It doesn't, or a picture, you drew them a picture but all the heart, all the love that went into it, it just really resonates off that. That's a great food memory. And probably is, since you were just dating then, the reason why you continued on and then ended up being married. Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's a really
Yeah.
beautiful one. Now, you've had a few kitchen wins too, and a few hilarious flops that included Italian carbonara. But what's a kitchen moment that still makes you laugh?
Let me tell you that carbonara story first.
Okay.
In Korea, when you order carbonara pasta, then that just means it's creamy pasta. That's all. It's not really carbonara. they make it with cream mostly. There's no egg-based carbonara. Yeah. And somehow I picked up, actually, my husband watched the YouTube. He figured out how to make it perfect in our kitchen setting. I learned it from him. I was so delicious to make it with like real egg and bacon and cheese. It was so perfect. And I was so proud of myself because I was not a good cook and now I can cook something really delicious. So when flew back home to see my family, I was I was telling my mom, I can cook something really delicious. Let me cook some real authentic Italian pasta. And so we went to grocery store together. It was challenging to find the ingredients to begin with. The Parmigiano cheese was hard to find. It was not really common ingredient in Korea. And bacon is slightly different. I don't know why it has less fat coming out of
Yeah.
it because Koreans probably prefer lean. I still somehow figured out all the ingredients, cooked it, and then it came out so bland.
Oh no.
I don't know what happened, but ingredients don't taste the same. I was so disappointed in myself, but just like my husband cooked for the like simple pasta, I was touched. I think that was the case for my mom. My mom was like almost crying
Wow.
for me in a funny way. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of making fun of me too. But yeah, that was the moment I realized that yeah, even with the same ingredients, it tastes different.
Yeah. And then at the same time, it's like a very positive cycle. We're learning, we're sharing things that move us. We want to share with those we love. And then they're touched by it. It makes an impactful memory and moment. And you also learn about food. I remember trying to find bacon in Asia, and it's different. And but also learning more and understanding why that difference exists. Like you said, they don't use the fattier parts of the bacon in cooking. So even just making those connections with food choices and what's available in different places that maybe you weren't super aware of before. So it's also a really educational opportunity too about how people consume food and how they select and source their ingredients.
If you go back to Korea, you gotta try fruits. Every fruit is so much sweeter than the fruits in the US.
Interesting. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. I do notice in when I was living in Shanghai, I didn't have a big refrigerator. I never had a big refrigerator. It was almost dorm size, like for years and
Yeah.
years. And I feel like a lot of the fruits I never put in the refrigerator. I always had them just out. I do feel like fruit in general lasts longer almost in Asia than they do here in the United States. I don't know why that is, but I
Mm.
find them going bad faster. So it's so interesting the differences in lifestyle and I don't like cold fruit. I'm used to going to an
Yeah.
open I spent 9 years in China. It really impacted the things that I like now. So I don't like going to the grocery store and the fruit is cold. I'm used to it being room temperature now. So even when I have grapes that I put in the refrigerator, I take it out maybe 30 minutes before and I just let it sit out on the counter and then I eat it. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting what your food habits and how you consume food and the different ingredients and how you experience them, like the bland carbonara you had in Korea. So now I want to really talk about your founder life, your family life with food. So you started Heartful Sprout out of frustration with all this baby nutrition advice. You talked about it a little bit before about how this pivotal moment in your life where now you had to cook for your child. And it's almost like you had to start over again. So can you walk me through how that kind of spreadsheet moment led to a full platform, which the fact that you're an engineer makes total sense that it would start from a spreadsheet. Oh, can you share more about that experience?
So when I was starting solid food for my daughter, I looked up a lot of different resources, like what's the first food basically. And a lot of resources that I find in English, probably coming from P or the US, some government, or like other resources that are based on those resources, say like purees and maybe like finger food, like baby led weaning, so that they can learn to self feed. It was a lot of fruit or vegetable based, which is good. So I had that set of knowledge and information and resources. And I also get to hear from other Korean moms, like what they're feeding, what's their feeding tips. And then I got exposed to Korean version of first food. A lot of Korean moms are a lot of Korean moms are type A. There's so much information about if you're breastfeeding, you gotta start with this food. If you're formula feeding, you gotta start with this food and have this food and this food together. And there's even like a combination of food that are good for the baby, things like that. It was almost like too much information and overloaded. And many of them are like misinformation too as well. So I spent so much time figuring out which one is legit, like recent, proven information versus there's no scientific background backing that information. So I spent hours and made my checklist from 1,000 things to check to 20. It was still a lot. And that's how I started with the spreadsheet. I wanted to make sure that Hannah gets all those like food groups, gets all those like iron, zinc, vitamins, those things, and also a variety because I don't want her to be picky eater. There's so many things that I baked into spreadsheet. And I was spending like hours and hours every week before going to the grocery store. What will I need this week? My husband was like, let's just and buy things that we see. But I'm like, then we're gonna miss this and we're gonna miss that. I was holding myself to too high standard and spending too many hours. That's when it flipped. Let's automate this. Let's turn this into some kind of like algorithm or logic. And that's how the spreadsheet became more sophisticated, like data science model. And from there, I was talking to other moms, and they were interested in doing the same thing. They just couldn't do it because who has time and energy to do this? And that's when the Heartful Sprout blew out to the whole app where they can find recipes if they just want inspiration. If they choose to be like type A, plan everything for nutrition, then they can use our service to like really plan it at the nutrition level. And that's how Heartful Sprout started for the earlier version of Heartful Sprout.
That is amazing. I honestly, I'm moved by not just the fact that you wanted to jump into such a technical venture, but the reason why, you know, that you wanted to really make what you were feeding your child to be something meaningful and helpful and not just be overwhelmed by all the options and just choose whatever, but make it deliberate and intentional for that. And then want to help others to do the same thing. So I think that's really inspirational. Now you're cooking more confidently now in the kitchen because you have a sense of purpose. You're enjoying the journey and you're involving your daughter in the kitchen. What do you hope she remembers most about these moments?
Yeah, I would like my kids to remember that home cooked food is so much better for themselves. I wish them to know that home cooked meal is basically, it represents love. It takes so much effort to cook meals. I hope they remember that. And I hope that they do the same. I hope that they care about what they eat or what they cook for the others. and really pour like love into the food.
We talked a lot about family and your own upbringing, your own background, your mom. What's one dish that instantly brings you comfort that you cook down? Like when you just want something to just make you feel good, comforted, like a big hug.
There are many dishes coming to my mind, but I think I would pick 잔치국수, the festival noodle.
That's
And
what
I didn't realize it until lately, but my co-founder Allison and I, we traveled a lot for this startup, and she noticed that I eat noodles whenever I can. Whenever I see noodles, I go for noodle soup. And she asked me, like, did you eat noodles a lot growing up? And then I started reflecting back. Mm. I think it's going back to that 잔치국수 that my mom makes. It was her version of instant noodle. Whenever she feels lazy, she cooks it
right.
for me, but it's so much better than instant noodles. Yeah, now I whenever I need something easy, something that can be like filling, then I cook instant noodles. If the warms broth soup warms me up, and then I love noodle just like doing that. And I don't need anything else in the soup. I put like a lot of veggies, trying to eat more veggies in there, but I don't really have to eat it. I don't really have to have that if I don't want to, if I'm feeling lazy. So that's my
Your
go-to
go-to. That's
food.
nice. I love soup. I also love soup. You sometimes just like a clear broth soup with scallions. If the layers are good in the soup, I'm all about it. I love soup so much. So, what's one food memory you'd hope to and love to pass on one day?
I love to I would like to get my kids to have memories about having fun in the kitchen.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I didn't really spend that much time in the kitchen because my mom didn't really let me cook. But now that like a lot of activities that I have with my kids are in the kitchen, even though it doesn't involve cooking, I just want them to spend more time in the kitchen, get them more involved and get them more familiarized with cooking themselves because it's just naturally good for them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I'm really appreciated just talking with you today. I've been so engaged with our conversation, and there's a lot of overlap in my own story with yours when it comes to food memories. And it just helps me to appreciate even more your mission and vision with Heartful Sprout and everything you're trying to accomplish from the inside out, which is from your family first and then for the community second. So I appreciate so much your time and sharing your stories with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I think I was really like too excited to talk about my stories.
That was my conversation with Kay Lim, co founder of Heartful Sprout. What stays with me from this conversation is how much of Heartful Sprout is really an extension of Kay's life journey. Growing up Korean, learning about food through culture and tradition, then later bringing engineering, systems thinking, and motherhood into the mix. There's something powerful about that blend. Not choosing between tradition and technology or intuition and data, but mixing and matching what works to create something that actually fits your life. That idea shows up everywhere in this conversation, in how we feed kids, how we build tools, and how we make peace with the fact that there isn't one right way, just more thoughtful ones. And that feels like the right note to end this season of Your Friend in Food. This show is about honoring where we came from, being honest about where we are, and giving ourselves permission to design better systems in food and beyond. If you've been listening this season, thank you so much for being here. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's trying to figure out their own mix. blending culture, care, and creativity into something that feels right for them. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Your Friend in Food and seen your own stories in the food memories my guests have shared. I hope you've began to see that food isn't just food. Don't forget to trust your instincts, feed with intention, and remember, the best systems are the ones that leave room for who you are. Thanks for listening. I'm Sandy Markle. This is Your Friend in Food.